I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to the next reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
Ben-Hur, A Tale of the Christ, is over. By the three-horned goat of Raynor, you are welcome. It's a silent film, Andy, so you don't know. We don't know how it would have been performed. We don't know.
That's true.
Yeah, I like to think it was that way.
I would like to think so, too. I just kept wanting people to... I picture them like Monty Python characters often, I find.
Yeah, that is an accurate interpretation. This one, wow. You hadn't seen this? Tell me you hadn't. Am I right?
I've only ever seen William Wyler's 1959 Ben-Hur with Charlton Heston, of course. The ever chesty Charlton Heston.
I haven't seen that movie in a long time, but I do have some memories of it. And I think watching this movie made a lot of those memories come back in Technicolor, for lack of a better word. It's an interesting sort of transparency to lay over that movie, this movie is. And I think, watching the performance of Ben-Hur in both these movies show just what range you can accomplish in a remake of this sort, because Charlton Heston is nowhere in the same Circus Maximus as Ramón Novarro in this movie, who is, as I said to you in a text last night, quite a dandy.
Well, the character is too.
Yeah.
Like he's very... he's just kind of like this soft, hanging out sort of guy. And then suddenly he's thrust into a whole other world, which is fun. Before we really jump into the conversation, though, I'm curious. It's an interesting exploration of Jesus's time, right?
Yeah.
My favorite version of this sort of story is, of course, Monty Python's Life of Brian. Again, probably why I think about that movie when I'm watching these stories where Jesus is kind of a cursory side character.
Yeah.
And we're watching somebody whose life is kind of living alongside that and journeying alongside that road. And so, as a kid, I grew up, we went to church regularly when I was young. And so I had a good understanding of just like all of the stuff with Bethlehem and the manger. And although I didn't know it was a cave, apparently that was a surprise. Maybe that's what mangers were back then. So all of that story was just like rooted in my growing up and like all the way through the crucifixion and everything. And I'm just curious, coming to this story as somebody, because I don't think you were a churchgoer when you were a kid, were you?
Oh, Andy, not a good one. I went to church much more as an adult for several years, about 20 years ago. And that stopped because of crime, not mine, but others. Church be falling apart. And so I kind of don't do that anymore. But so I did not have church education, right? But I have read the Bible. I did the audiobook.
Wow.
And so, I know what's in it.
So I guess that's what I'm curious about, because coming to this story, had you heard this story before? Or was it like, well, I know there's something going on with this Jesus guy, but I don't really know what all of these bits and pieces are. I'm curious how one comes to this if they weren't familiar with all of that. Because this is a story where you kind of have to be familiar with kind of like what's going on in that story. It's like Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead, right? It helps. It really helps to have seen Hamlet first.
I'm not sure that it helps as much, because it's hard not to know who Jesus is. Right? Even if you're not a churchgoer, surely you've heard of Jesus and the apostles, and there are names that are familiar. And once you see the glowing hand or the hand on the saw of the carpenter doing carpentry work, you kind of get a sense of what's going on in this movie. I think. I mean, maybe I had more than I thought, but I was kind of tuned in pretty early.
Okay, yeah. Well, good, and I guess that's it. But it's curious. Like, I mean, they talk about him enough, like this savior and all this sort of stuff, and that he's performing miracles. But by the time he's actually performing miracles at the end of the film, it does make you wonder. And maybe it's more for somebody who just wasn't as familiar with the story. Like, who is this guy? Like this guy who's is supposed to be a king, and now he's saving people.
User.
Yeah, like it's right. Yeah, so it's an interesting perspective, though, to take. And I guess just before we jump in, like the book itself, I thought was kind of an interesting thing to read about, because this book was the author, Lew Wallace, who had been a general. He actually was, befriended somebody who had been an atheist, and he didn't grow up going to church. And so he was like, this is an interesting story. And so he kind of like dug in and like learned about all of this and decided, oh, I think I want to write this. But he decided that he couldn't just tell the story of Christ, because Christians probably would look at that as blasphemous, right? I mean, look at where Martin Scorsese ended up when he did his tale of Jesus, right?
Right.
Catholics protesting and everything. And so what he said is, the Christian world would not tolerate a novel with Jesus Christ its hero, and I knew it. He should not be present as an actor in any scene of my creation. The giving a cup of water to Ben-Hur at the well near Nazareth is the only violation of this rule. I would be religiously careful that every word he uttered should be a literal quotation from one of his sainted biographers. And so that's the reason that he chose to tell this story through a fictional character, which is Judah Ben-Hur. I mean, how does all of that play for you? Do you like the way that we're seeing this? I mean, it's in the title, A Tale of the Christ, but everything is told through Ben-Hur's story, really.
Yeah, I think it plays just fine. I mean, first of all, what I come into it with is not a lot of the story of Christ baggage, because I don't remember much of that from the Heston version. It seemed it seemed much more secondary, tertiary to the story of the Ben-Hur that I have seen, that I think we get the Christ. We get more Christ toward the end, but there isn't this like Christ is going to dip his toe into the story throughout.
Oh, he does.
Like,
he does.
Get this. Really?
He gives him the cup of water early on. We see
he does? I don't remember any of that.
Yeah. It's all there.
All right, I got to watch it again, clearly. What I remember most about that Ben-Hur is that I think Ben-Hur and Messala were hot for each other. Messala.
Well, yeah, and there's a whole rumor that when Gore Vidal did a pass on the script, that he added a homosexual subtext between those characters, which of course Charlton Heston completely denies. Who really knows?
Yeah, his performance doesn't deny it. Wink.
Well, it's the one who's playing Messala in that one who supposedly was playing it that way per what Gore Vidal had done, and Charlton Heston was none the wiser. But which
well
makes
played.
me laugh. Yeah, it makes me laugh.
So it does. I mean, I think functionally it does work, because the story I really care about is the Ben-Hur story. That's why I showed up. I'm not really in it for the story of the Christ, mostly because I know the story of the Christ. I know it really well. I don't need to see it. And I think the first half hour of this movie is kind of devoted to birth of Christ, wise men, the interconnectivity of their stories, the prince of the house of Hur, and how those connect. And I feel like, it was fine to keep a little bit hands off. So once we get into the story of Ben-Hur, that's where I'm connected.
You're more engaged, yeah,
for sure.
I suppose being this story that's based on this very, very famous book from 1880, and so it's only 45 years later. So it's like making an adaptation of a very, very famous book from 1980 right now, right?
Yeah, that is a weird thought.
Hail, citizens and lovers of the cinematic spectacle! It is I, Andius Maximus, and I come bearing a proclamation that shall stir your very souls. If the mere sampling of our discourse on the epic tale of Ben-Hur, a tale of the Christ, has set your heart ablaze with the fires of passion, Then it is time to pledge your allegiance and join our legion of devoted followers. When you enlist in our ranks, you shall gain access to a veritable treasure trove of exclusive content, including monthly bonus episodes that shall transport you to the grandest realms of the cinematic world. As a loyal member of our Legion, you shall revel in the privilege of early access to all our shows, free from the vexing interruptions of mere advertisements. Moreover, you shall wield the power to shape the very fabric of our discussions, casting your vote on the tales we shall regale in future bonus episodes. Our Discord community welcomes all, but as a member, you shall have the opportunity to set the membership channels ablaze with the fervor of a chariot race. So, what are you waiting for? March 4th to truestory.fm/join and pledge your allegiance today. That's truestory.fm/join. For a mere 5 denarii a month, or 55 for an entire year, you shall gain a seat of honor at the most thrilling spectacle in podcasting. Once you have immersed yourself in the full, unabridged glory of our latest discourse, you shall be ready to charge forth with us into the annals of cinema history. Do not simply take my word for it. Join our ranks and discover for yourself. We shall await your arrival, ready to illuminate the sacred screens and delve into the very heart of this epic tale. Don your toga, grasp your sword, and prepare for a journey unlike any other. The ultimate cinematic experience of Ben-Hur awaits, and we have only just begun to unravel its mysteries. Stand firm, my friends, and remember, in this realm, it is the strength of one's conviction that separates the true believers from the mere spectators.